I did for 3 more seconds of, well, no, it's not Bidl Torah, because one of my main thoughts last week or the other day in Shiur was like, you can't walk from Washington Heights to 161st Street and River Avenue, when Shabbos is out at 6 in order to make it there for a 7 o'clock game. Like that was
Oh
my
yes,
top
good,
of
good,
mind
good. This
thought.
is but maybe when we get to in a couple of weeks we get to Shinchet. I think it's Shinchet. That yeah, Shinchet. The end of Shinchet has the towards the end of Shinchet, not quite the end. The whole thing about playing ball on Shabbos.
Uh,
Machloket between the Mechaber and the Ramah about playing ball on Shabbos. So,
What,
but
what's fascinating is to think for just a moment that playing ball is something that's sufficiently old.
I know. That's the thing. Like this is not a new thing. So, all right. I want to start us out. I really only want to do the first three seifim today, if we even get to that. Because partially because I want to do some Berurah halacha on this whole kind of point of chavatzecha asurim. So, I guess I read the Shulchan Aruch, right? That's my role here. So I'm going to start that. Oh, Ori's here. Here we go. So maybe he was in the waiting room for a while. I don't know. Hopefully not. So, so I'll start. We're in Siman Shinvav, Seif Aleph. There's the quote from Yeshayahu, which we all heard on Yom Kippur in the Haftorah, if you were paying attention. Mimso chafsecha, chafatsecha asurim, afilu b'davar she'ino seshu malacha. All right, so your desires, your wants, maybe your, I don't know, interactions in the world are forbidden, even for something that doesn't have malacha. Kigon, here's our example. Shemayen nechasav lirot matzarich lemachar. You go check out your property to see what am I going to need on Sunday to do? Do I need to water the lawn? Do I need to so forth? Or you go to the edge of the jurisdiction, let's say, in order so that once Shabbos ends, you can go right to the bathhouse.
Or Yankee Stadium, as the case may be.
Exactly, or Yankee Stadium. So not for several months. So that's v'chein ein machshichin al tchum liskor polim. You also can't sit there at the edge of the tchum in order to, like, right after Shabbos, you're going to go hire some workers, right? But aval machshich al tchum lehavi behemto. Right. So, but you can sit there as it gets dark at the end of Shabbos at the edge of the Techum, because you can bring your animals up from across the Techum. We'll see we'll talk. We already did talk in Shiur, but we'll talk more about the difference between those cases. Right. So you'll say, well, actually, and we saw this is actually the way the Gemara resolved two different issues. But if it's an animal that can't walk on its own accord, you can't bring it. You can't sit there at the edge of the Tehum as Shabbos ends, just so you can bring it immediately when Shabbos gets out. Why? Because the taleh, this little sheep, you couldn't carry it on Shabbos because it'd be muksa. So that's also, by the way, I mentioned Shinchet. That will also be in Shinchet, Balei Chaim or Muksa. So although we've seen that a little bit. All right. And then the Hagav, who adin de asur l'tayel limso sus or sfina or koron l'tsepo. You can't, I'm going to put this in modern terms instead of exactly, you can't wander the docks on Shabbos, so you'll be right there to jump on a boat to take passage across the body of water right after Shabbos is over, right? So that's not allowed. Okay. Good. Any questions on what we said so far, just in the Shulchan Aruch, or anything that we missed? By the way, hi Ori. I don't know if you're there, but you seem to be there. You were there. Amazing. So, all right. Here's how I want to start. I want to start with Mishnah Berurah. His first comment on Sif Katan Aleph, where we're going to deal with this idea of min kura milta, right, which is something we've somewhat seen to some extent before, but I want to see it some more. Max, you're up.
Great. Okay. Shemayin nechasav v'davka hicha demin karamilta kagon shomed etzel sadeyu hatzricha charisha o ktsira v'chayotzebo. Deminkar hadavar she'omed sham le'ayin b'tzracheha v'chein leilech ulahachshich al petach hamedina kivan shederech shehamarchatzaot sham chutz lemedina samuch lefetach hamedina nikar sheletzorech hamerchatz machshich aval im lo minkar milta hava bichlal hirhor be'askav demutar. Okay. Should I translate the whole thing or
Give us a summary.
or give the summary? Okay, so it's only usher to look after your property if it's clear to others or clear in general that you're doing it for the purpose of either of the needs of the field, or that obviously, like, that the bathhouse opens, or the bathhouse is right by the Petach Medina, and it's clear what you're doing. But if it's not clear what you're doing, if you have some plausible deniability or something like that, then it falls under Hirhor and it's mutal.
Exactly. Yeah. If you remember, right, the Gemara had because right, you're not doing anything physical, you're not out loud saying, hey, I'm sitting here waiting for the bathhouse to open, right? And you're also not doing any malacha, right? So what's the problem? As long as people is not recognizable that you're doing it, you're sitting there on Shabbos getting ready for post Shabbos, right? Kind of thing. So for instance, right, the way I was imagining with Max, your example, and then I'll go back to the Gemara, is right. If you got in line for the tickets at Yankee Stadium while it's still Shabbos, you're like, all right, Shabbos will be out in a few minutes. By the time I get up to the front and I have to pay, I don't know how you're going to pay, but let's pretend, you can just give them a credit card number you memorize or something, right? Come on. We know what you're doing. You're getting tickets for the baseball game that night. You're not having Shabbos at that point, even though you're going to buy the tickets after Shabbos. But if you're like, oh, I just went for a stroll in I don't know what area. It's the Bronx.
Ravine.
So, what was that?
Chavez Ravine.
Chavez Ravine. Yeah, okay, no one goes to just to stroll. Yeah, in LA, if you go to the stroll in Silver Lake, and you have them by Dodger Stadium, we were like, hey, you're going to stroll in Silver Lake, right? You're not doing so good. This is people remember. Hi, Isaac. In the Gemara, right? There were two kind of excuses that were given for why someone would be wandering by the Tehum. One for a Talmid Chacham and one for an Am Haaretz. I can't remember what the one. I remember it was it may have been Serva de Rabbanan there, but I can't remember what was it? Anybody remember those?
Sorba could have been lost in thought.
Yeah, I think it was Shmata Mashichta, or his learning pulled him over there, right? Mashiche probably. It's
and the other was
in Eruvin was is this Lamed Ted Amud Aleph? Is that right in Eruvin? Something like that. So, and what was the other possibility?
Looking for his donkey, was it?
Yeah, it's some sort of animal. I think it might have been a donkey. You're wandering after your animal on Shabbos, and you happen to be at the end of the club. So it's not that you happen to be doing that, but we could say that you're doing. It's not obvious that you're waiting for the merchatz, kind of thing. So this is
but I thought in the Gemara there that was to prove that you can't.
Good. No, that was to prove. So yes, we'll get to the Berurah in a second, right? If you remember correctly, the Gemara was talking about somebody who on Yom Tov that's followed by Shabbat is
right.
Getting ready to extend their Tehum the other way, and we're like, well, why can they do that? But you can't sit there waiting at the edge of the Tehum for the merchatz, right? Because in the case where extending the Tehum, it's not obvious what you're doing. You might be able to say you were thinking through your Gemara and you ended up wandering there, right? Kind of thing. So
right, but but the two cases of the Talmid Chacham and Am Haaretz are dafka not about the Me'aya Nechasav and Petach HaMedina.
Good, but the Mishnah Berurah here is saying that we're in Sif Katan Aleph, by the way. Isaac is saying, yeah, if you want to go check on your field and it's not obvious you're checking on your field, you're just
right,
then it's okay.
So this is still sort of a Mariadayan type of situation.
Yeah, it's interesting they don't use the term Mariadayan, and I think there might be some differences between this and Mariadayan, but
Landis explained it last year, I believe, because in Mariadayan it looks like I'm going to do that I'm going to do something wrong right now. This
Mhm.
is understanding my intention for after Shabbat, which wouldn't be usher then, right?
Yeah.
So it's not exactly the normal Marit Ayin. It's a question of measuring. It's a similar principle because you're measuring your intentions. But I
Yeah.
also think there's an aspect here for oneself. I mean, I don't know if we saw this last time somewhere or this is just my impression, but like, or my experience. Like if there's plausible if you're not super goal oriented, you're also going to be more present on Shabbat. Like if it's a stroll that I would hypothetically take, then I can actually enjoy that stroll on Shabbat. If I'm online for tickets in Yankee Stadium, I'm obviously online. Like to myself, I'm also online for tickets. Like it's not, I'm in
Yeah.
my Chapatzim tangibly. So that's why I think it's not, it is what others would see, but it's also what is like commonly accepted as an activity, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. This is, by the way, happened to me. Just an example. I was a big fan of the podcast West Wing Weekly. If anybody has mentioned, I'm a big fan of the show West Wing, and I wanted to. They were in Boston when I was living in Cambridge, and it was like right after Shabbos. But I realized to get there, I'd have to like on Shabbos walk over across the bridge, and I wouldn't be leaving the Tehum probably or anything like that. But I don't know. Like I was like I don't know. Is that the activity I want? Am I like prepping for Shabbos after, for after Shabbos on Shabbos? Or people just think I'm going for the stroll? And it felt to me really personally, maybe I was wrong, maybe I was right. I have no clue. Like it was too obvious that I was going to go see this show after Shabbos and not, and not just going for a walk. So,
I
um,
to sharpen the baseball game point, I think it's maybe the ticket line isn't it. Maybe it's like you live in Lakeview in Chicago, and Wrigley Field is like right in the middle of the neighborhood, which is
yes.
very much on the path from where many Jews live to the shul where many Jews go to. Shuls where many
Yes.
Jews go to. Like that
Well,
feels actually
not exactly, but almost.
Yeah, I mean, I used to live there.
depends.
I had a friend
Depends.
who lived
I took
across
that
this.
route once.
I had a friend who lived across the street from Wrigley Field, and like I would go to his house for Shabbos lunch all the time. So like, yeah, I get that. It's yeah. So, um, but you're right. Depending on the shul and all that. Okay, good. That is Aleph in the Mishnah Berurah. Let's take a look at Bet. So Sif Bet. This was but oh yeah, this is okay. In machshichin v'chule. Maybe Josie, do we have you for another minute or two? You can read or you have
I really am going to head out the door in about a
okay, so
minute, so
fair. Ori, you are
I'll
up.
just
I'm ready. אין מחשיכין וכולי, היינו לקרב עצמו בשבת עד סוף התחום ולהחשיך שם, שיהיה קרוב למקום הפועלים לסוחרם במוצאי שבת. So this is a case where, because you want to get yourself close to the edge of Tchum when it darkens, and then that's the place where the workers are to hire on Motzei Shabbat. והטעם, בכל דבר שאסור לעשותו בשבת, the reason is anything that's asur on Shabbat, afilu hu isur midibur sofrim, even a derabanan, asur lachshich bishvilo. You wouldn't be able to machshich for that thing.
Good. This is the
This is
I yeah. Whenever the Mishnah verse is Vatam, it's like great, right? He's going to give you the theory of the whole thing, and I just want to repeat that, right? He says if to on Shabbat to go to somewhere where you're closer to be able to do something which you would not be allowed to do on Shabbat itself, that's a problem. All right. So if I want now, granted, we could say maybe you could, it's like to buy tickets for a game on Shabbos, right? That would be allowed. So you can't on Shabbos get close to it, so you can quickly buy tickets after Shabbos, kind of thing. So, all right, is it right? Even midivrei sofrim, right? Kinyan and Shabbat is a derabanan. It's not a deraita. So, it's a nice little. He's given us the theory, and this is going to be the whole reason you can sit there at the edge for your behema is going to be because to move your or to call your behema to lead your behema on Shabbat would be allowed, not to carry it, but to as long as the right conditions were there. You just happens to be beyond the tchum. So
to circle back, I'm a little foggy here. So this is to contrast a case where I'm going to the edge for the merchatz, let's say, and it's not Shabbosdik, it's Chafatzecha, but it's not an Isser.
Well, the merchatz is an Isser on Shabbos.
So what's the difference here between Aleph and Bet?
This is
He's saying he's giving it clearly like this is to go lachshich for divrei Isur. Or it's not the contrast. The contrast is just the intentionality plausibility thing.
exactly, yes.
No difference here.
Yeah,
Okay, but it's always for an Isur, something that would be Asur on Shabbat.
exactly.
So why is this about Chafatzecha Boas? Why is this about that Navi?
Why is this founder Chafatzecha Asurim?
Yeah.
Because it's about your kind of like dealings in the world, not on Shabbos in some ways, right? Like the things that you're gonna even like to I'm engaging with my bathing practice essentially, even though I haven't bathed. I'm not gonna bathe on Shabbos. I'm not gonna go to the bathhouse on Shabbos, but I'm gonna go to get ready for it, right? It's that thing. Or I'm gonna look after my field kind of thing.
But isn't this the same as Hachana then? Is this different than Hachana?
Oh, seems to be a part of Hachana, yes.
It's like a source for Hachana almost.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So
but Chafatzecha Asurim is also its own, I'm sort of quoting my Yedidut now since last year. It's sort of its own layer of other things that are not allowed in Shabbat also, right? Like we started with, it shouldn't just be moving stuff around your house.
good. That may be a
not Hachana in that case. It's just things that are not really Asur, but are not to talk about on Shabbat.
Yeah,
and then of course measuring like we did last time.
Yeah, well, measuring is interestingly enough, maybe about Chafatzecha. It may also be about that may actually be a malacha of Kotev, right? It's a tolda of Kotev, right? Potentially, at least. Well, no, certain types
or Derabanan of Kotev, maybe.
Yeah, it's probably a Derabanan of Kotev, right? Because it's you are allowed to do it for the tzorach mitzvah, so that otherwise it would not be.
But that's what we were saying last week, that you're allowed the whole category of things you could last time with tzorach mitzvah, because it's not chafatzecha, it's chaftei shamayim. So it didn't get us out of a hard isur. It got us out of this specific derabanan, the specific
which is
Shabbos, what I call the Shabbosdik derabanan.
Yeah, this is all about your personal stuff as opposed to your personal dealings in the world. As opposed to global dealings, right? Communal dealings, that kind of stuff. So
I just think we're sort of teetering between it being an independent principle and just sort of hachana for malacha.
Yeah, it's interesting question.
In the Mishnah Berurah, at least.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll leave that open a little bit. If this is actually different from hachana, I think it is, right? I think because hachana, I don't know. Let me think about it.
It's real hachana. It's just going to the place, like going to the
exactly.
place.
I'm not
exactly hachana.
Yeah, maybe that's the difference, right? I'm not like putting on the clothes to go to a particular thing. Like I'm putting on that may be its own thing, right?
Literally preparing.
Yeah, literally preparing. Or the next, well, the way I think about it, although an interesting question, like I've had this happen. Like you go to a wedding that's like after Shabbos, but for you. And there's a lot of questions. I always wonder, like, some Jewish streams will do this, like were the bride and groom preparing on Shabbos or not, right? We actually have these real concerns, but let's pretend for the moment it's not a problem. But for you to get to the wedding, right, you got to leave, like, to jump in your car right after Shabbos is over. So you got to get dressed while it's still Shabbos, right? Now that might be L'tzorach mitzvah, that might not be Chafatzecha, but that is an interesting question of Hachana going on there. So
we will have this next Shabbat, not this coming Shabbat, but the week after. My daughter's having her bat mitzvah. On Shabbat, and then we'll have the party at the shul right after Shabbat, or shortly after Shabbat. So it can be, there's already discussions in the household of certain things. Now, I wonder about it because it's Shabbat and it's already the bat mitzvah in a lot of ways. So, is it plausible that like I'm getting dressed up because, it's, we're getting dressed up for, for Havdalah, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, let me ask you a question about the bat mitzvah theory or idea, right? Or maybe even some weddings, right? Could we avoid this problem by having it actually start earlier, but not do anything that's Machalel Shabbos while it's still Shabbos, right?
Officially.
Sometimes you have weddings that will start with Havdalah, but there's like, I don't know, cocktail hour before, and like all they're doing is handing around appetizers. Nothing's happening. You
Yeah,
can
we
eat.
definitely don't want to start early in real life, but I wonder if as a theoretical principle, if I get
Yeah.
dressed up and show up at the shul, I'm walking. We live next door to shul. I'll be festive on Shabbat and after Shabbat, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So Isaac, this question, I just want to, because I was actually looking into this because of, when you have preparing from first day Yom Tov to second day Yom Tov, this comes up, right?
Mhm.
This is like the whole thing of Harama, right? Harama is like a tricky way to do things, which is also in the 10th paragraph of Shabbat. They've got stuff on this, which we sometimes allow and sometimes don't, right? But there is like an idea, for instance, and there's actually a fascinating Taz on it. So I'll talk about this just for a second. Like you're not a right, Masechet Beitza says you cannot cook from day 1 Yom Tov for day 2 Yom Tov. But then it has
Mhm.
examples of where you can. And it's like, well, if you were like, I want to eat like an afternoon meal on first day Yom Tov, I can like put some extra stuff in there in some cases, right? So that I can also eat it on second day Yom Tov, right? And they talk about, and so the Taz is like things that are not like a big bother or are all in one go. The Gemara brings up, for instance, I might want to put a lot of meat in it because it improves the flavor if I just cooking one piece of meat or something like that. It's but also he brings up like just pouring a bunch of water into the kettle, so I heat all the water up. Now why do you have to heat that much water? It doesn't make a difference taste wise, right? But there are these ways to do it so that you can have your food warm at the beginning of second day Yom Tov, and nonetheless you did it on first day. But it's like a very fine line to play that Harama game. And so we're always very careful with that. But yeah, there are ways that it's like, all right. So like it wasn't like I prepared for after Shabbos. I like started the party on Shabbos and we just keep going, and there was no Machal Shabbos going on here.
The min is this helpful with what we're doing right now with the min kar hadavar?
Yeah, it's also a great question, right? Like, is it
Similar, very
obvious what
similar.
like what you're actually doing here? Is really what I'm doing is I'm getting everything together so that the moment Shabbos is over, we can like bring in the DJ and
Well, yeah, I mean, on the other hand, like I'm thinking of a wedding I was invited to but didn't go to because I'm not flying across the country for people I don't actually like. But anyway, I remember reading the invitation, looking at it and going, this is a summer wedding and you're having the Bedekin at like 6 p.m. and that's insane. On the other hand, like you look at it and you realize the chuppah isn't until later. And I'm like, if you're in a situation where like they're not going to do anything, they're not happy that they have to make concessions to halacha, right? Is it better that you do it like that,
yeah.
or that they go to someone who's not going to do anything halachic, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is where like I think the principles in the Mishnah Berurah are so important because Rav Nachum was saying, this stuff isn't bringing up cases that we're dealing with, like we're talking about right now, which are real cases in the modern world of these questions. But like Min Kara Milta is going to come into this, and is it an Isur Darab, an Isur at all that you're waiting to do, right? And something Isur that's Asur on Shabbos, right, permitted on Chol. So, and all these are things that I think have to be weighed. And look, this is where a real posek comes in at this point, right? Like, how do you actually play all this stuff out in reality? So, good. I
just want to ask
Yeah.
or point out quickly on the Carmelta piece.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting to me that like, and that seems to be a parallel of Mocha Chamelta from that Brighta and Eruvin. But it was interesting to me that the language got shifted from Mochacha to Minkar. It doesn't seem like. Sorry.
Yeah, say more. Keep going.
It doesn't. I don't know. It's not like totally upending the upshot from that Breita, but it does seem like, I don't know. Yeah, the difference between this is definitely why you're doing it versus it seems like why you're doing it. Just to get back to the Marat Ayin question again too. It didn't. I remember reading that in the Mishnah Berurah, or wherever it was first, and going like, wait, where did this Minkura language come from?
Yeah.
And even if it's connected to the Mocha Melta, it felt a little bit of a shift.
Yeah,
what's the difference in the language? You're saying mocha means proven?
Proven or certain, or it didn't have to me the valence of seems to other people or something like that.
Minkar is more external, you think? Recognize the language of recognizable. outside
or
of,
at least lends more importance to other people's perceptions as opposed to the reality of what you're doing.
Yeah, I don't know. I
so
think that they may
skeptical.
mean they may mean the same thing at the end of the day. Like they may just be
Yeah.
terms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, by the way, I just want to say, because I think the Mishnah Berurah just did something also very fascinating, which is that there's actually a couple categories, right? To the merchats might actually not be, I don't know. There is a takanat balanim, right? You're not allowed to go to the merchats on Shabbos, because do you guys know this? There's a sugya in Masechet Shabbat that turns out that, because it's perfectly allowed that the water was heated before Shabbos. You go Shabbos evening to the bathhouse and you go in there, but that the bathhouse attendant, owners were heating the water on Shabbos and claiming it wasn't. So the rabbis were just like, we're just gonna make this asur, right? Eventually, this comes into, by the way, as a side, the whole question of bathing on hot water on Yom Tov. This gets brought up a whole bunch, and the whole question of like, does that takana apply to a personal shower or not? But and the whole question why it even applies on Yom Tov at all, right? Because you can heat water on Yom Tov. But anyway, sorry, I'm since I've had Yom Tov on my mind so much, all these issues are things that I've been thinking about recently. But he seems to say that, like, if I understand correctly, you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but that in order to go check out your field or go to the merchats, you can't do that because it's min kara milta, that you are just there to get ready to do this activity right after Shabbat, right? To go check your field right after and so forth. However, right, the issue with sitting on the boundary to go get poalim is that the activity itself is asur on Shabbat, right? So it sounds like to get your behema, even though everyone knows you're on the techum to get your behema, that's mutar.
Because if it were in Tchum, it would be mutter. So the
Exactly.
fact that it's out of Tchum, how did we exactly capture this last time?
We said that it was allowed because it's an allowed activity on Shabbat, bringing your behema, just happens to be the behema just happens to be in the wrong place. But the activity itself is mutar. In other words, if your techum just happened to be larger or happened to be in a different direction, you would have been fine. You could have done this. So, or not just, if there were a house that just happened to be where your behema is, your techum could have been extended, you would have been good to go. So
It's like shvut to shvut, and it's not shvut at all, actually. But what you have now is time and place, right?
yes.
Displaced by time and you're displaced by place, but the action in both of those would have been allowed.
Yeah. So,
But
right.
I could just say, but it's not allowed if it's out of Tchum. So
Yeah.
still Durabanan, just like he just said, Durabanans are not allowed. So it's
good. So things that have to do with where you could have made it a permitted activity on Shabbos. So cases of anything that you can do an eruv to fix, right? Which includes like an eruv chatzirot, right? If my ball rolls on, pretend I can play ball on Shabbos. This is shinchet, but my ball rolls outside the techum on Shabbos, right? Or outside the eruv on Shabbos. My ball was no, I can't go get the ball on Shabbos. But what can I do? I can wait to the edge of the eruv, and once Shabbos is over, I can go get the ball, right? Why? Because on Shabbos, if the eruv were just extended, I would have been able to take the ball. So.
right, but with absent both of those things, this would still be usher, right? Like what we have is two things. They're not Durabanans, but they're I guess, circumstances of time and place.
Yes, the activity itself of carrying a ball on Shabbos could be mutar depending on how the setup is, right? It just happens to be in the wrong setup at the moment. So, as opposed to, hiring laborers is not permitted on Shabbat, no matter what the setup is, right? There's no eruv you can make, to fix that. As much as Wyatt Cenac like to play that out if you've ever seen the Daily Show, because you've never seen the Daily Show eruv. Yeah, okay, good.
Yes.
But,
I don't
The Eruv
remember.
hat.
Oh, it's vague. This is
he has
old.
an eruv. He has
I
the
remember
eruv hat
why
on, and he's
Cenac did it.
dipping the bacon sandwich in milk, and he's eating it. And, not that milk and bacon matters, but
Yeah. But he was trying to do everything.
yeah, he's like so. But I think he's hitting on that.
now I
Like, only certain activities are there's most things on Shabbat that are asur are just always asur. There are a few things that are permitted if you set up the physical structure correctly. And those are the things that you can sit on the tehum or sit on the boundary of that physical structure and wait to do right after Shabbos. So, all right, I want to do Gimel in the Mishnah Berurah, because it also plays with this, which is lehavit. This is where you can sit in to bring your behema after Shabbos. Let's see, who hasn't? Isaac, have you read?
Okay. Levi behemato, so it's bringing the animal. De'af shehi omedet ata mechutz litchom. So she's also standing outside of the tachom. So you bring your animal right outside of the tachom.
You want to bring your animal back from the tehum after Shabbos, right? So your animal's right outside the border of the tehum, let's say. So.
Okay. ואין אומרים להביאה בשבת מכל מקום, למקרי
Oh, wait,
זה.
I think you must have, did you skip a line? Because ואי אפשר להביאה בשבת, did you say that? Did you read that part?
את אי אפשר ואין אומרים. ואי אפשר להביאה בשבת מכל מקום, לא מקרי זה מחשיק בשביל דבר האסור, כיוון שאם היו בורגנים הם סוכות השומרים סמוכים זה לזה בתוך 70 אמה ודלת טפחים, היה מותר להביאה אפילו היה נמשך באופן זה כמה מילים מסוף העיר משום דכל זה שייך לעיר וכיוון שיש לה תקנתה על ידי בורגנים, לכך מותר להחשיך אפילו בלא בורגנים, דלה אסור החשיכה אלא בשביל דבר שאי אפשר למצוא תקנתה לאיסור. Okay, so I'll just say from the get-go, I haven't done this week's reading at all yet because I just moved, so you're going to have to help me. But so we're going to watch me fall on my face. It's going to be fun. Okay.
No, you're doing great.
Okay, so it's not permissible to bring the animal back into the home on Shabbat in any case. But in any case, this isn't considered like going somewhere to wait for Shabbos to end in order to do something that's asur. Because if you have these little like watch guard huts that are lined up one by one within 70 amot and 4 tefachim of the edge of the Tehom, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. That extends the tehum. As long as every 70 amot and 4 tefachim, you have a place where people reside. It doesn't always have to be permanent, right? Like like a guardhouse is enough. That extends the tehum to that beyond that spot. So
perfect. Okay, hayab mutar, then it's permissible to bring the animal even if you have, even if this lets you like extend how far you're going by umpteen miles beyond the edge of the city. Because it's all considered to be related to the city. There's so since there's like sort of a fix to this situation by virtue of there being these borganim, these little watch guard huts, it's permissible to have Shabbos go out while you're waiting to do this or while you're doing it, even if there aren't borganim. So this is exactly like the Eruv situation that you were just talking about. Exactly. Because it's not because hachashecha is not asur, except for something where there's no way to fix it. There's no like other way to get around it.
Exactly. So yeah, that's great. I think you did a wonderful job with that piece. That's a good explanation. And so again, right, Tehum issues, Eruv issues, right? This, by the way, I think Maxwell, did you ask me a Tehum issue once about Pittsburgh? Was that you? Yeah, I was looking into this whole question. And there was like there's a big thing in Boston about it, but also in going from Cambridge to Boston, but in New York, people used to go over the bridge, right? Like from Brooklyn to Manhattan on Shabbos, and there are all these questions. I found some. They're like, well, there's actually a little house in the middle of the bridge, that used to have a, like a person who worked there, and like maybe that's sufficient to extend the Tehum. Now it depends how many of those are there, how far is the bridge, and so forth. But that was like one posek was kind of positing this idea of like, why are people? It was like an after the fact, if people are just walking over it, like how do we have this happen, kind of thing.
I think some people still do.
Oh, they still walk over it. Okay, yeah.
I think it's like a machloket between different Hasidic dynasties.
Oh, fair
But I
enough.
think some people do.
Yeah. So, but okay.
It
But
also seems
he's
to me,
saying that this case is only allowed not because of something with bringing, because bringing the hound to Tchum would have been an Isser anyways. So it didn't have a lesser status like we were just saying a second ago. He's saying the reason is because Borganim in general would have extended Tchum. Even if they don't extend Tchum in this case, the concept, what is it? Does it maybe have to go back to what do you call it? Muhamilta? Min Carmilta?
No, I think this is a case where to bring an animal within the Tehum is perfectly allowed, right? My animal goes and runs to your house, Ori, and we live in the same city, right?
Within the Tchum, yeah.
Yeah,
But if
I'm
he's out of
perfectly allowed.
Tchum,
I can take my animal by the leash. There are rules about leashes and all that, but like, there's a way to do it. I take my animal by the leash. I bring it back to my house. Perfectly allowed. Or I can
no,
call
but if
the
he's out of the Tchum,
It was out of the Tehum. So it happens to be that I just happen to have been in the wrong map, right? If you put a different setting behind me, it would have been perfectly allowed. I just happen to have the wrong setting. They put the wrong background in there.
so I can machshich alav.
Exactly, because it's
Another
something.
case of
Sorry, can-
machshich alav because of the circumstances. Even if the circumstance here is just that we happen to not have Borganim,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
you were saying before you don't even need that. It's just that the circumstance happens to be that the Tchum ended.
Yeah, well, exactly, because you could imagine the Tehum didn't end there, that the Tehum got extended because maybe there would have been.
So
So
he's saying the
Okay,
same
but
thing,
like-
just in the words of Borganim.
yeah.
okay, but what is like the meta principle behind that? Because I mean, I could think that becomes a Marat Ayin issue because maybe it makes people think there are these Borganim or the Eruv does extend further,
Oh,
right? Like, I feel like I'm missing something about why this is okay, even though I understand the like.
It's not okay
The
to get the
shot.
animal. It's just
Yeah,
okay
yeah.
to go wait.
yeah, you're just waiting on the Tehum as it gets dark, right? It's
Yes, but why? Like, do you see what I mean?
because you're not breaking shot. You're not right now. You're just sitting at the edge of the Tehum. Now people might know you're doing that to get your behemah.
Right. No. You're misunderstanding the question. The
Yeah,
question is not what can you do? The question is the Eruv does not go further.
yes.
The Borganim are not there.
Mm-hmm.
What does it matter that I could put them there?
Oh, it matters in that the activity I'm waiting to do itself could be permissible on Shabbos.
Yes, but it's not. And it's not in a way that is not going to be, an Eruv is not built in a week, and neither are all these Borganim. This feels very.
Oh, okay, good. I will give you.
It feels different. It's almost like they're trying to play with like Davar Sheyesh Lo Mati Reem or something, but like, it's not just going to show up on you. I don't know. It
It would be
feels.
helpful if we could articulate the principle, and I think we were trying to do that before this, Steve, also by saying the concept of machshich is you can't go. First of all, what's usser? Let's start with that. You're not allowed to go to the edge of. You're not allowed to go at the end of Shabbat to do something that would be not allowed on Shabbat. But the circumstances there could be time and place, Shabbat ending. But if also the place of where the animal happened to be or where the Tchum happened to be, when you have those two things, my walking on Shabbat is now it's not directly, let's say hachana, it's not directly assisting me with this task because of these two modifiers. That's the best I can do. I'm trying to articulate the principle too, because I don't
know,
see
but
it.
like
Aside
I'm
from
like.
in Carmilta, which could
But
be
I like that you're saying like there are two parts, and so like then when we have only one part, the one part, if you're breaking the rules for the one part, you have a problem. If there are two, if only one is something you're avoiding, then like, or you're breaking, it's not such a big deal because there are two and therefore you're not doing it. Okay, fine.
I don't think
But
you're
like,
breaking the rules at all. Is the principle
well,
saying
but
in
we
order for
declare
that
it not to be breaking it, but like it's so clear to me that we're going there for the same purpose.
Oh, good, good. I don't think it's about Minka or Milta at all at this point. It's either Minka or Milta doesn't exist, or right, it's maybe just Mutar even if Minka or Milta, right? Potentially.
That's the question.
But here's the thing: is what am I? I am on Shabbat waiting to do an activity that might actually be allowed on Shabbat. If my animal, right? Imagine you have two animals, right? One is in the Tehum, one is out of the Tehum, right? The one in the Tehum, on Shabbos, I am perfectly allowed to take that animal and walk the animal. Walking an animal, the activity itself, when you ignore the setting, is a potentially permissible Shabbos activity. So I'm not waiting on Shabbos to do an activity that's asur on Shabbos, right? I'm waiting on Shabbos to do it.
No,
You
because
are by virtue
Isaac
of the
is not
location.
satisfied with that because you're not.
I don't know.
allowed
Like,
to
are
put the
you
animal into
secretly
Tehum on
Heschel?
Shabbat.
You're like, the space is irrelevant, right? It's all about time. Like, we build our
No, he's saying it's all about the
time and,
action.
you
No,
don't tell
I'm
me
saying
where
it's
my
all-
time cathedral is, man.
I'm
you
saying
know?
it's all about the action here. In other words, I'm not sitting on Shabbos thinking about something not Shabbostic at the end of the day, right? I'm not thinking about,
But is not leaving the home itself not Shabbostic?
good.
That's my question
Yeah,
too.
fair. And
How
so-
have you reduced the space thing to be
Yes.
so irrelevant? Like, what's the principle behind that is the real question.
Yeah,
I think we understand.
I think you have to say malacha gruahi, right? This is like kind of a lesser malacha in the sense, this is a Tosfot phrase, but right, in the sense that it is a malacha that is permissible, that could be permissible on Shabbos at the end of the day, right? And so like these are special, well, Tehum, well, not Tehum is deraita or derabanan is an interesting question. Everyone agrees that Tehum we're talking about is the derabanan. Whether or not Tehum at all is in existence is a deraita is a whole other question. But it's an activity that has a permissibility on Shabbos, right? In other words, it's like not a full blown. It's something that isn't quite at the same level for that reason. So I would say
It might be helpful to remember that we're talking about walking. So we're talking about something where I'm going to move within space. And for that walking to be usher, it has to be that walking is preparatory for a real style malacha thing. And that's not allowed on Shabbat, and I'm trying to do after Shabbat. So I mean that's the only case we're talking about. Meaning, Joel, what you don't want to do is lower the status of Tum in general to some lower thing. You're not saying it's less than Durabanan, for example.
no, I'm
You're
not.
saying in this particular case, what kind of walking I'm allowed to do on Shabbat? If I'm walking to do an activity that would be allowed if the space and time were different, both of those,
Yeah,
then the activity is not enough to make it, chafatzecha in a way that would be not allowed on Shabbat for that Durabanan, right? But it's only this particular thing where I'm like displacing myself. So I'm sort of displacing myself to the edge of the place that
yeah.
I'm just trying for you, Isaac, to make more
Yeah, I mean,
But well, let's
I
for one
like
second.
like I understand what you're saying, and I find it very dissatisfying, but it's not because of any failure on your part. I think it's just like I find this unsatisfying as an approach.
Well,
To
but I
for
want
the
to look at
Chapa to
let
fall
me
out
look. Let's
this
look at the hold on. Let's look at the Berurah halacha because I think maybe this will help us a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe we'll find out. Max Buchtal, Shemayen nechasav vechule olelech. It's a long Berurah halacha, but let's do it. Go for it.
Okay, this is the first one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait, sorry, where are we?
We're in the Be'ur halacha. Mine doesn't have numbers; it just has diburei matril. So,
this one has the star.
I'm on Safaria.
I think Safari doesn't have the
I
Be'ur
think it
halacha.
has it separately than the
Yeah,
Mishnah Berurah.
That
So
makes
I
sense.
just go back to other commentators.
But if not, it's on Al HaTorah, I'm pretty sure, right? I
Yeah.
hope so.
Okay, I'll do that. Thanks.
All right, go, Max. You go slowly while Isaac catches up, or finding it, and we'll get this all sorted. So
Great. Okay. Shemayen chasav ole lech lefetach medina. Hainu afilu tochatchum ken hiskimu kol ha'achronim. Okay, so this is the case even inside of the tchum, which all the achronim agree about. The Hineba Mishnah Berurah he'takti dedavka hecha demin karamilta who
I have Magen Avram.
Mehamagen Avraham. The Share Acharonim Shehiskimu Kulam Kain v'dilo k'chaye adam shehichmir bazeh b'chol gavnei. Okay, so in the Mishnah Berurah, I pasted, or no, it's not really.
Copied.
I
Plagiarized. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I plagiarized. That's in a case where it's min kura milta, which I got from the Magen Avraham, and all of the other achronim agree except for the Chai Adam, who is machmir, and is oser, regardless of the min kura milta factor.
Exactly. So right, in order to go to the edge of the Medina to quickly go to the Merchatz after Shabbos, or to check out my property on Shabbos, even in Tehum, Chai Adam's like, I don't care if people recognize what you're doing or they're not, right? Asur. We'll never get some more explanation of it. And so, by the way, you should know this. I don't know if I mentioned this. The Chai Adam wrote a commentary on his own works. For the Chai Adam, it's called the Nishmat Adam. For the Chochmat Adam, I can't remember what it's called, but so the Nishmat Adam is referred to as the Chai Adam's own commentary on the Chai Adam. Or really, it's not so much commentary. Again, it's like deeper explanations. So, all right,
It's
go
the
ahead.
Beor Halachat to the Mishnah Berurah.
Exactly, it really is in a lot of ways. So,
Okay. V'hinei ra'iti b'nishmat adam sham sheharich b'zeh. V'katav dedin ze shel Magen Avraham Talia beplukta dezehu Talia beplukta dezehu rak leharamban v'harashba v'haritva. Aval harambam v'hasmag mashma delosfir alekim ela delelech uleayen b'nechasav hu asiyat chafetzav mamish v'asor bechol gavne. Okay, so the Chai Adam gets into this more, and he says that the Din and the Magen Avraham of Min Kura Milta is actually subject to a machloket, and it's only the Ramban and the Rashba and the Ritva who hold or whom the Magen Avraham holds by, but the Rambam,
right, they're the ones who think Min Kura Milta is an important factor,
right? But the Rambam and the Smag, I guess, imply but don't say explicitly that they don't hold that way.
Exactly.
Rather, if you go to look at your property, that is in and of itself asiyat chafatzecha, and it's aser regardless of any other factor, min kura milta or otherwise.
Exactly.
Okay, umashi kshe sham be'erevin mibraita de lo yalech adam besof sadehu v'chulei lo hikshe ela miseifa sham de al ze tirates de al ze tirates hata mocha chamilta aval ha de leilech ula'ayen besadehu lo ba'inan sheyahe min karmilta davka de bechol gavne asur. Okay. And you could say that the Breita and Eruvin is difficult for the Nishmat Adams.
No, I think it's remember we use the Breita where the Breita is a way we challenge the whole idea of going to walk, to the edge of a boundary on Shabbos. We're like, it sounds like you can't do that.
Got it. The Breita that serves as a challenge.
Yeah.
Okay. Is only a challenge on the Seifa there.
Yeah,
and the Seifa meaning the Me'ayen Nechasav.
Yes, exactly. No, not Me'ayen Nechasav. It's
just Petach Medina.
It's the Petach Medina, I believe, but
yeah, sorry, Petach Medina and not Me'ayen Nechasav?
No, I think it's actually, hold on, I think
both.
if I remember correctly. Now I gotta double check because it was in my head before. This is Eruvin, right?
Yeah. Lamechet Amid Bet onto Lamed Tet Amid Aleph.
Yeah, it was right at the bottom of the page. But yeah, I think he's saying that yeah, and he thinks okay, so there's two things. There's Latayel to check out your field, and there's also the Petach Medina to go to the merchatz. And I think what he's actually saying here is when we that the only thing that they're actually really using is the seifa. And that's where they say muchach hamilta. In other words, in terms of going to the merchatz is the real challenge to the original case. And when they give the answer, in the case of the merchatz, it's not muchach hamilta, but in the other cases, it is muchach hamilta. Muchach hamilta only applies to the case of the merchatz and the walk to extending your techum, but doesn't include the case of checking your field, right?
So the Hatam Haka is, you're saying, is local to the Breita and not the Yom Tov case.
No, he's saying.
Or sorry, it is part of. Sorry, it's part of the
Yeah,
challenge.
he's saying the Haka in the case of the Yom Tov case, and
Right.
Hatam is only the second part of the Breita.
Only the Petach Medina.
Yeah, and so those are the cases where you're allowed to. Minkara Milta is the important, or Muchacha Milta is the important factor. But in the case of your field, it's not the important factor. The important factor is your field, your Chafatzecha, and the story Asur. So.
Got it.
Okay, it's a little confusing, but I wanted to just show that. Keep going a little bit.
Okay.
The walking your field is not lahachshich alav. It's just
No, it's not.
It's
So,
okay. That makes more sense.
It's a filu. It's even within the Tehum, so you can't do it.
Right, because it's literally the non-Shabbostic principle. There's no.
Yeah. So
The timing doesn't matter.
okay, do a little bit more, Max.
Okay. Uvemet afilu im lo
This is Lu. Imlu. Yeah.
im lu yehe kidvarav bedat harambam ve'asmag halohu milta derabanan venuchal lismoch lahakel al kol hane ravavata hanireh leel demekilin behedya.
But I don't think it's a question. I think he's saying this.
Okay.
Right. I'm going to
Demekilin behedya.
Yeah. If I summarize that, he says, "All right, that's great. The Chai Adam thinks it's a sur to go check out your field, even if people don't know that it's what you're doing on Shabbos. You know, it might look like you're just going for a stroll." And he's like, "But wait a second. This is the Mishnah Berurah. The Berurah Halacha says, but wait a second. On the other hand, the Rambam, the Rashba, and the Ritva all seem to think that that's perfectly mutar. And so even if the Chai Adam's right, you know what? This is only a derabanan Isur at the end of the day, and we have a derabanan Isur, and we've got the Ritva, the Ritva, the Rashba, and the Ramban on one side. You know what? You can be makil about it. Like, that's the end of the story. If you have some pretty good authorities and it's a derabanan, you can be makil. That's his conclusion here. So, okay, that's part one of this. But did I want to keep going? No. I want to stop there for that one, and then let's do. I want to do one more Birur Halacha here. Ori, you want to do Havi Behemto?
Yeah. Lavi behemto. Ainu shelo tovad v'chadome. So this isn't, so it doesn't get lost in similar cases. About mevia kedei la'asot b'melacha or lisaba, but if he was trying to bring it in order to do melacha or to travel with it, the vadai asur would definitely be asur. Va'afilu hi omedet tochat tchum, even if it's standing in the tchum. Uchile dekamei behaga.
So, okay, you're right. The Haggah is in the Ramah, right?
In the Ramah.
Right, because the Ramah says, right, Hu adin the asur tayelim so sus or sfina or koron letzeitbo, right? You can't walk around on Shabbos looking for to ride a horse after Shabbos, right?
Right.
So,
but that's
I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean that's a little bit like, what's your purpose in getting it? Only you know.
Good. Yeah, but you're right. But yeah, maybe it's obvious after Shabbos when you jump on the horse and ride it back, right? It's
right, but not when I'm going l'achshich alav.
Right. Yeah. So
I mean, I guess the question is, what's the nafka mina? Because if I'm going to get my horse, if indeed getting it lost is an issue, which I assume it would be with any animal, that's always going to be my primary concern. I guess like there'd have to be a case where I'm like, in the middle, like, what does it mean that I'm going to get it from Malacha? It's interesting because it brings us back to like the intention mattering, which is sort of the opposite of min karmilta.
Yeah, you're right. It's so in this case, it sounds like why you're there is also a major factor to it. So it's
Yeah, I like it because I do think part of this law is about what your Shabbat experience is. Like whether it's min karmilta or not, that's going to affect the way that you experience your Shabbos walk.
Yeah,
You're going to do.
Well, actually, I'm going to read. I wasn't going to do this, but I just want to read the Mishnah Berurah before that, the Berurah before that, the in machishin, where you can't sit on the edge of the techum to hire workers. He says the beginning of it, all sorts of Gemara, right? Kufnun, Vayan lakam b'siman such and such, Magen Abraham. So the Chan Asura Filo Hecha Dela Min Karmilta, right? That's what I was saying, right? There, it doesn't even matter Min Karmilta in this case. Shiur b'shvil zeh, right? So go look there. He'll explain why. But kadvu tama yisur hu mishum hachshacha gufa mistamo moreshu choshev lasot davar shu asur b'shabbat. Right? What is it? The problem? Because when you're sitting there in the boundary as it gets dark, you're showing everybody that what are you thinking about? You're thinking about doing isurim on Shabbos. And again, this maybe goes to my point. Although Isaac, maybe you still disagree with me. If I'm thinking about walking my animal on Shabbos, you're right. Maybe I'm thinking about walking it from outside the techum. But what I'm thinking about, the activity I'm thinking about, is just walking my animal, and that's perfectly allowed on Shabbos. And I think that's where the distinction's being made here. So, but
I think for me, I'm really bothered by the you're thinking about it, it's fine. You're thinking about this, it's not fine, and I just feel like Big Brother is in my thoughts, and I'm not here for it.
Oh, because you're thinking about
this is what people can tell your intention is, meaning it's not right. I mean, this last one took it out of the personal. It's really saying "Achshacha gufa mistama moreh shehu choshev la'asot davar shu asur b'Shabbat." Unless he doesn't really mean moreh to people, but just like it shows.
I think it just more shows. Yeah, this is an activity of like you maybe, and this is the other thing that I want, right? Here, Harim, I can think about forbidden things on Shabbos, right? But I can't do an action that shows I'm thinking about forbidden things on Shabbos, right? And that's the subtle difference there. So I think actually
That's a great way to explain why hachshacha and talking are the same, which really brings us back to the Gemara.
Exactly.
Chalav and dibur, that seemed very abstract at first, and now I think it's very clear.
Yeah. So I'm hoping to help clarify, but maybe I'm not working. But we'll keep going a little bit and see if we can we'll make some other progress on this. I want to move on to Siman to Seif Bet, if that's okay.
I have to bounce, but it was great.
Great. And Isaac, I really appreciate this is helping us clarify what all these points
Sorry,
are.
I know I'm
No, don't apologize at all. Please do not apologize. This is this is very good. Look, the point of the shiur is to you can go, Isaac, if you need, but I'll say just one word, right? Is to really get to the bottom line halacha, like what is the rule? And part of that is how to apply it. And the only way to apply it is to understand the logic behind it, right? That's why the rabbis I actually don't think they care about the logic of halacha because they want to know, does it, I don't know, because they're interested in the tam mitzvot. I think they're really interested in the only way to apply these mitzvot is to understand the tam, right? That's for them is important. The Rambam wants to know the tam because he wants to philosophize about it, but I don't think the Chazal are concerned so much with that. I think they're concerned you can't apply any of this stuff unless you understand the logic of it, and okay.
Thanks.
You're very welcome. Let's do bet. Seif bet in the Shulchan Aruch. Haytavim to omeret chutz latchum. Yachol likrot la kedei shetavo. You're allowed to whistle or call. Assuming whistling is allowed on Shabbos. You're allowed to make a call for your animal that it will come up from the techum. Even though, well, actually, I want to read I do. I want the Mishnah Berurah here. Maybe, or you read something short. So read the Mishnah Berurah Yachol v'chulei.
ולא גזרינן דילמה יצא בעליה חוץ לתחום כדי להכניסה לתוך התחום. And we don't extend the gzera worrying maybe this will get the owner to go out of tchum to bring it back in tchum. And if the animal doesn't listen to your call, mutar lachnisa al yedei eino Yehudi. I have mine. You probably don't have an Eno Yehudi, but my
I do because I have the same version that you do.
Yeah, but I know that some Girsa that says.
Max, what do you have for that?
I have Aleph Yud.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
okay.
You did, okay. Yeah.
I have Aleph Yud. Oh, nice. מותר להכניסה על ידי אינו יהודי, אבל אסור להכניסה על ידי ישראל. So this is something where you could say to a non-Jew to bring it in, but not a Jew. אפילו ישראל אחר שאין בעליה, even another Jew that is not, sorry, בעליה שאצלו הוא בתוך התחום. Another Jew is not the owner?
You'll see why. You'll see why.
שאצלו הוא בתוך התחום, תקיים עלן. So for him, it's in the tchum?
Yeah, in other words, you.
He's in the
You
neighboring
have different
city?
tchumim.
Exactly. Yeah, we have overlapping tchumim, right? And
Or not quite overlapping, right?
well, no, because you would have to be able to bring it to me, right? So you
Oh,
would,
right.
yeah. So you know, I see my dog.
Partially overlapping.
Yeah, exactly. You're not completely overlapping. So my dog has run outside the Tehum. I'm like, I see Ori's there. Oh my God, Ori, get my dog for me. And I know your Tehum, we have different Tehumim, but yours extends into mine. You can just bring, and the dog is in your Tehum, right? Like, bring the
Right.
dog. Like, what's the big deal? He says, no, you can't do that.
Even that, no. הבהמה והכלים כרגלי הבעלים הם לעניין תחומים. Your animals and your stuff is like your appendage when it comes to tchum. They're attached to you in your tchum. ועל כן, כיוון שיצאת חוץ לתחום שלה, and therefore, even if it went outside of its tchum, אסור לכל ישראל להזיזה בידיים מ400 שלה. Any Jew couldn't move it from its arba amot. It's out of tchum. It's the chefza, not the gavra. It's the item itself is out of its tchum.
Exactly.
But why can you tell a non-Jew? Is this just shvut to shvut?
Good. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. There's a little note in the Shiur Tzion about this, that even though the main thing is it's Seda, you're losing money, and you know, with loss, you're allowed to ask a non-Jew to do things on Shabbos. So,
Cool.
yeah. So I think this is interesting too, because right, this is an interesting sense of that your property has your tchum, right? It's kind of on Shabbos, and it is limited to that area. And even that, this actually makes it stronger in some ways what the Shulchan Aruch is allowing here, which is to call to your animal. The animal has left its tchum, right? But you're allowed to ask it to come back, nonetheless. And the animal doesn't know.
And also makes stronger the lo gazrin on at the beginning of the Mishnah Berurah there.
Exactly. Yeah. So
and it makes stronger the havamina that we would have been gozer on.
Because you're gonna go outside, and so okay.
Or that you are outside.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Interesting application of that principle would be, I mean, it's a little bit different, but we were talking about this last time. I'm in Yom Tov and you're not. We're both Jews. You're, one of us is chutznik and one is, so I can't ask you to do malacha for me, Israelis.
I think you can.
Because it's a malacha for me. Or maybe you can because it's not a malacha for you.
I believe actually not only can you ask, it's actually like much more lenient than asking a non-Jew, right? There's a gezerah against asking a non-Jew to do malacha for you. There is no gezerah against asking a Jew for whom it is not a malacha.
Right, because the non-Jew ostensibly has the same temporal reality as me. So they're an extension of my desire in that case.
Yeah.
And the Jew is completely released from it being chag completely. That's actually what I've always thought, but I was trying to make it machmir sounding.
Yeah. No,
Does that?
What was that?
Just to push it a little further, does that also do non-Jews have a chutznik have a chutz la'aretz status?
That would be really interesting.
If you I mean, this is fair. If you are from New York and you bring your servant to Eretz Yisrael with you, do they follow your minhag? I don't know how far that goes.
That's a really fascinating
question. But the servant is extending it beyond non-Jew, right? Like two different.
Well, let's just pretend.
Fine, maybe. Yeah.
The servant, it's always an extension of your will. Like
right.
It's
okay, fine. So even if you encounter your non-Jewish New York,
but I have my non-Jewish friend who actually lives in Israel, right? In Eretz Yisrael. and is
Yep.
like visiting they're not a Jew, they're visiting, they're in town, and I'm like, hey, for second Yom Tov, I forgot my yahrzeit candle went out. Can you please light the candles for me, or light a flame for me? Maybe that person would be like, yeah, sure, I can do that. That's I have no no well, it might be actually like it's actually the truth is lighting a flame on Yom Tov is d'Rabbanan, it's a nolad. So that's not a good example, but but yeah, this is, I could ask him to do a malacha for me potentially, him, her, them, any of I don't know, it's a question. Or do they have the status of like they're in Chutz La'aretz, that's it, they're done. And by the way, there is one, I think it's the Hard Tzvi who says that really the status is not based on where you are from, it's based on where you are, because originally like who kept 2 days of Yom Tov? The people who were around Yerushalayim, who kept I don't know, 1 day of Yom Tov, who kept 2 days of Yom Tov, people who were far away from Yerushalayim. It didn't matter where you were from, it mattered where you were, right? It was like, where did you get the news of when Rosh Chodesh was?
But the Gzera that extends
Masev,
that to a calendar world
yes,
is a little different, isn't it?
it is Maseh Avotenu Be'adenu, right? This is yeah. So that's why I think everyone it's a lone opinion. I just wanted to throw it out there. That is an opinion out there. So it's a
One of
very
my favorite topics, Speka Dioma.
What's that?
Every year we go deep in it.
Yes, I mean, I personally, this is going to get all recorded, but this came at the beginning of Shiur, actually. Like, it seems to me that people are overly leaning on both ends of it in some ways, right? It's like, when you go to Eretz Yisrael, you have all these, Chusnikim who are there for one, that regel, and they are like, I'm just going to do it one day, and you have all these Israelis who, Rav Lan has made a case for them, but they like, first, there's a lot of questions, but it's interesting of like, should all of Medinat Yisrael really count? Like some of that wasn't part of Eretz Yisrael in the or Eretz Yehuda in the time of but other interesting shuvot on that. But also like, if you've been living in the U.S. for 25 years, maybe at some point you got to like be like, I don't have a status as an Israeli anymore. Like, it's an interesting question. So, but
is this a minhag? Or anyway, we could get too deep into
great.
it.
So there's room to be a lakel, because the whole thing of Second Yom Tov isn't really it's a lesser thing, but to some extent. Okay.
I've always felt that second day Yom Tov is Baal Tosif. Isn't it brought in the Gemara as an example,
Yes.
adding a day of Sukkot? I always found that so interesting that they go so far as to say it's a risk of doing Baal Tosif, but we still do it for so many generations.
So, all right, I've got 4 minutes. Let's see how much I want to do. Let's see. Let's do it. Sif Gimel. I'll read in the Shulchan Aruch. Machshichin al tchum lasot tzorchei chala or tzorchei meit leavi lo aron v'tachrichin. So what you can machshich on the tchum. I translated none of that for the needs of a bride. The needs.
You translated al.
What is that? I translated all. Oh, good. Yeah, good.
You said amba.
So. Actually, I'm going to stop with that one right there, just based on our time. So, because the next is going to be a much more complicated topic, but you're allowed to do it for the needs of a bride, for the needs of the dead. But this is not considered. You can look at the Mishnah Berurah and Chet. He's like one line down, or depending on your version. He says, "Vafilu hake mutar de chefse shamayim hu de bishvil hava'a be'alma pshita de mutar lachshich." Right. He says this is chafsei shamayim. At the end of the day, it's not chafasecha anymore. We've left that realm. In order to bury the dead, to help someone with their wedding stuff, that is not your chafetzecha, and you are allowed to be machshir for it. So, okay, I'm going to end here. I think this is a good ending point. We have another week on this stuff. So next week we'll do some more of this, and hopefully we had some concepts, some good discussions. I hope, and to be continued. So.
Okay.
Good shot. To all of us.
I like the small group. It's more intimate.
It is. I like it too. I like small group learning. So it's and have a good Shabbos. A good Rosh Chodesh too. Rosh Chodesh, Shabbos. It's everything. So it's
2 kugels.
Yeah, 2 kugel. Yeah, there we go. All right.
Oh, Rav Joel, can I ask you a quick
yeah, let me stop the
Shabbos
recording. Yeah,
question?
let me stop.